I call the member for Throsby.
Deputy Speaker, I rise to move an amendment to the motion. And that amendment would read as follows, that all the words after that be admitted with a view to substituting the following words, and I quote, "This House calls on all parliamentarians, consistent with their duties as representatives, to gauge their constituents' views on ways to achieve equal treatment for same-sex couples, including marriage." And I wish to make a few observations about the amendment.
Member for Throsby has the call. You get to second it when he finishes. The member for Throsby has the call.
The first observation is this, Madam Deputy Speaker, that I don't pretend to be an early activist on this issue. When I think about the issues that I campaigned on this year, it was dealing with youth unemployment, which stands at around about 14% in my area. It was reforming our economy to make it more sustainable and to preserve our planet for future generations. And it was improving infrastructure and access to health and education services. But now, having focused on the issue and having applied the core Labor values of equality, fairness and dignity, I believe that there is a case for change. Indeed, it was these values that led Labor in its first term to conduct an exhaustive review of all Commonwealth laws to identify and remove all areas of discrimination against same-sex couples. Indeed, in the last Parliament, the Labor government amended 86 separate pieces of legislation to this end. The second observation I'd make is this, and that is that if change is to occur, then it must be built on community consensus. If legislation is to be changed, it will require consensus which requires more votes than any single party can muster in this chamber. And that won't be achieved by an heroic dash, but careful advocacy that respects different views respectfully. On this issue, there are different views. There are some who, on theological grounds, believe that to celebrate marriage of two men or two women is an affront to their religion. I've thought carefully about this objection, and I can't help but draw the conclusion that the real objection here is not to the marriage, but to the relationship. We can be thankful that we live in a society where those who hold this view are as free to hold it as I am to say respectfully that I do not agree. We, on the Labor side, are opposed to discrimination. This opposition is grounded in the value of fairness and equity, and we are opposed to treating people differently because of gender, race, religion or sexual preference. There are others who argue that gay marriage or same-sex marriage is an affront to tradition. I have more sympathy for this argument because I am a great believer in the importance of tradition. It's often the stuff that binds us together, but it can also be the stuff that excludes and impedes genuine progress. We must be very careful in this place in mindless genuflection to tradition, because traditions change over time, and there have been many matrimonial traditions which we now think of as absurd, if not abhorrent. Betrothal, dowry, and a wife's matrimonial vow of obedience to husband come to mind as examples. The third observation I'd make is this, and that is that marriage is an important institution in our society. It's a special relationship where two people say to each other and to the rest of the world that they agree to be bound together in love, exclusive of all others, for life. I believe it would diminish us all as a society if we were to say that we may exclude gay and lesbian couples from this celebration. This marks them as somehow less worthy, or even as biological oddities. I respect the right of religious organisations and others in our community to disagree with this view and to continue to practice in accordance with their belief. Indeed, no motion or act of this place can of itself change those beliefs, but it's an entirely different thing to ask the state to enforce this. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I come to this place as representative of my party and my electorate. I will advocate for change, but I will do that in my electorate and in accordance with the rules and processes of my party
has
in this
expired.
parliament.